The runner-up for the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator job just nuked Vance Joseph and the Denver Broncos defense to orbit. So, after the team lost to the Washington Commanders yesterday on the back of another lackluster defensive performance, although, again, there were some negative plays by the offense as well, at the end of the day, when you watch the tape and break it all down, the defense is why the Denver Broncos lost this game. Rex Ryan, who was the runner up for the defensive coordinator job alongside Vance Joseph, who is also an analyst, obviously, for ESPN, longtime NFL head coach, he just absolutely obliterated this defense. Take a listen to what Rex had to say here, man. This is just insane.
Here's what I also know about Denver right now, okay? Because we're all looking. How come this marriage, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, doesn't seem to be clicking? Well, it is clicking. This team has averaged more points per possession than any offensive unit in the National Football League. Nobody knows that. It's the truth. Last week, they only had 6 possessions. So whose fault is that on? It's on their defense. Their defense is supposed to be number 1 in the league. If I was going to be the coordinator, I don't know what the hell it's doing now. That's who's letting this team down. It's their defense. It's not the offense. So to me, it's a crazy stat. This team is more points per possession than any offense in the league. So to me, I think it's fixable. And we just got to get that defense playing to what the expectations were. Because when I saw the talent they had on that defense, I'm like, there's no reason why this shouldn't be the top defense in the league.
It's pretty clear Rex Ryan's a little salty about not getting that defensive coordinator job. And although I don't necessarily agree that this would have been the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL if he had gotten the job, because I just don't think we have that kind of talent on the defensive side of the ball, I do mostly agree with what Rex Ryan is saying here. If you look at it, our offense, although they have experienced some growing pains, you can definitely sit here and point out a ton of growing pains from that week 2 game in particular. At the end of the day, man, the defense has been the big problem for the Denver Broncos. Anybody who has watched the Denver Broncos on tape can see that. And it's boiled down to a lot of big issues. The first one being a lack of talent on that side of the ball. I mean, our defensive line has massively disappointed. It feels like Zach Allen might have been a big free agency whiff. This dude is not producing at the level that he was even producing at training camp. Obviously, it's still early, so we can't sit here and totally say that Zach Allen was a free agency whiff, but it's not looking great, man. He's been virtually non-existent in these first 2 games. On the other side, DJ Jones has kind of gotten washed out. I haven't been really impressed at all at what I've seen from DJ Jones on the D-line. Edge rushers, we did see guys such as Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper step up. Randy Gregory got a sack, although that was mostly a cleanup sack and a coverage sack due to Sam Howell holding onto the ball for too long. That wasn't really Randy Gregory winning at the line of scrimmage. So on the edge rush unit, the Denver Broncos do have some pieces that are stepping up, but at the end of the day, man, Frank Clark obviously dealing with that injury. Even before he got injured, he was lackluster. Randy Gregory has not lived up to the massive contract. We don't have a true alpha number 1 edge rusher, and the Broncos, as the time goes on, man, it looks worse and worse, the decision by George Paton to trade Von Miller. This right here proves exactly why, but I digress. I know some people will definitely disagree with me on that one. And then obviously in the secondary too, not having a true number 2 boundary corner alongside Pat Surtain and trying to depend too heavily on a second-year player in Damari Mathis, who is clearly not cut out for the job. And then obviously not having adequate safety depth after Caden Stearns went down, Delarian Turner-Yell got injured in the game, and then Kareem Jackson got ejected. And after that, Justin Simmons was the only true safety that was left healthy in the game. We had to see Essane Bassi drop into safety, and then they had to put Jaquan McMillan at nickel. It was terrible. This team just does not have the groceries on the defensive side of the ball, and that was even evident last year under Ejiro Evero post-Bradley Chubb trade and post-injuries to guys such as Ronald Darby, Randy Gregory, and Draymond Jones got shaken up as well. Towards the end of the season, the Broncos were actually, I believe, 27th ranked in DVOA on defense. That's not good, and that's an inclination of serious regression on the defensive side of the ball, even under Ejiro Evero. Vance Joseph's defense right now is so infuriating to watch, and Rex Ryan clearly shares some of these same sentiments, man. The lack of discipline, the poor tackling. The team is currently, I believe, first in the NFL in penalty penalties once again. And this year, most of those penalties are coming on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, a lot of the penalties came on the offensive side of the ball. And it's both pre and post snap penalties, offsides, illegal contact, defensive holding, pass interference, and what's alarming, the defense, I believe, has 4 personal foul penalties already this year, 2 of them obviously being on Kareem Jackson. So this team is showing a clear lack of discipline and fundamentals when it comes to just overall defensive execution. It honestly gives me some of the same vibes that I got when I watched Nathaniel Hackett's offensive scheme last year, because what the Denver Broncos are trying to do, they're trying to jumble some of the same concepts that they ran last year and in years previous with Vic Fangio and Ejiro Evero, and they're trying to combine some of those coverage principles with Vance Joseph's defensive fronts and pressure schemes, and then on the back end, they're also trying to sprinkle in some of Vance Joseph's cover 3 schemes. They're just trying to jumble a bunch of different schemes together, and it reminds me a lot of the Broncos offense last year under Nathaniel Hackett, when we were trying to jumble some of the concepts that Nathaniel Hackett liked, the concepts that Russell Wilson liked, the concepts that Clint Kubiak brought over. It feels like just a jumbled schematic salad. That's what it was like on offense for the Denver Broncos last year, and now it feels like that's what it's like on the Denver Broncos defense this year. There's no structure, there's no sequencing, there's no anticipation of what plays the offense is going to run. I mean, we got gashed multiple times in the screen game in the game against Washington, and that was because Vance Joseph failed to make adjustments. He still kept bringing pressure on Sam Howell, and eventually Eric Bieniemy got to the point where it's like, all right, Vance, if you're going to do that, then I'm just going to start running screen passes at you and punish you with that same pressure that you're bringing in my face. And then I'm going to start running the ball down your throat to counter that as well. Because a great way to counter pressure in the NFL is establish the ground game. That's exactly what they did. Both Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson had big productive days. What Brian Robinson did in that second half was just absolutely embarrassing. He gashed the Broncos defense. The tackling was terrible. And at the end of the day, man, yes, the Denver Broncos offense did have 2 turnovers, and there were a couple of plays where the offense did stall out. Not all of it was on Russell Wilson, in my opinion. A lot of it was just overall lack of execution around Russell Wilson. I'll have a film study coming out later in the week on that. And then, finally, the defense was able to get a stop on a key strip sack fumble from Jonathan Cooper. Denver's offense went down and kicked a field goal. This was in the third quarter. But after that, Washington then went downfield and absolutely gashed the defense again on the ground. They bled clock on that drive. Brian Robinson punched it in for a touchdown. They got gashed for multiple big completions on screens on that drive. It was an embarrassing drive for the Denver Broncos defense, and it allowed Washington to go up and take their first lead of the night, 28-24. Then Denver's offense had to go out. They were playing from behind. Washington did not allow Denver to reestablish their ground game, and then they started to bring the pressure with Jack Del Rio on obvious passing downs. So that was just a great schematic job there by Washington on defense. They made some phenomenal adjustments on the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos, it seemed like, had no answers for those adjustments. It was frustrating to watch. Sean Payton's fingerprints are on this for his lack of adjustments on offense in the second half, but at the end of the day, man, Vance Joseph's complete leakiness on defense is why we lost this game, because despite the lack of adjustments and the miscommunications on offense, we still had points where our defense had a chance to close out and win this game for us, and they did not do that. We should have never been in the situation that we were in where we had to go downfield with that stupid Hail Mary play, because the defense should have held their water when the Denver Broncos kicked that field goal to go up 24-21. They shouldn't have allowed that big drive for Washington to go downfield and take the lead. And after that, man, it just went all downhill from there. So, yes, the play that really started the downhill spiral for the Denver Broncos was the fumble by Russell Wilson. And that play should have never even counted. That should have been a face mask penalty. But just overall, the defense sprung a leak in this game, and that's why we lost. So now the question becomes, what is the main problem for the Denver Broncos on defense? Is it schematics, or is it just a lack of personnel on defense? I think it's really a lack of personnel when you look at it at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, Vance Joseph's bad scheme is not helping matters. It's definitely making the problem worse. Talent on the defensive side of the ball is lacking for the Denver Broncos. They don't have the horses that they need. And that comes down to the individual who's buying the groceries, and that's GM George Paton. The questionable free agent signings he's had over the last couple of years have really come back to bite him in the ass, and some of the poor drafting in the later rounds has really come back to bite him as well. He's had some nice picks in the draft that really have kind of atoned for a lot of the bad drafting in the later rounds, but George Paton is the main reason why this team absolutely sucks when it comes to depth. So I don't know, man. Right now, George Paton is on serious hot seat watch for me. I mean, right now, this roster is lackluster, and the reason for that is poor roster construction. Part of it from the previous regime under John Elway, but most of it under George Paton. I'm curious, Broncos country, do you guys agree with that sentiment? Drop those comments down below and let me know as always. And do you guys feel like Rex Ryan would have done a better job with this defensive unit? I feel like his aggressive attacking scheme would have at least made it look a little bit better on paper, but at the end of the day, a lot of this is just due to our lack of talent on that side of the ball. But I'm curious about your thoughts, Broncos country. Drop those comments down below. I would love to hear them as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. And also, guys, according to the YouTube algorithm, just 20% of you guys who watch my videos are subscribed to the channel. So I would really appreciate it if you guys have yet to subscribe to the channel, if you could please do so. That would be absolutely awesome. That is literally the best way to show your support for the channel. It's free, it's easy, and it really helps us out, guys. So I would really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.